Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Well, finally, I stopped being lazy, and I took all of that car footage that of the EVs from the Melbourne EV show from a month ago, and I put them all together. I'll overlay some clips now, Steve. So from that, I've put that up in its 4K glory on YouTube now as well. It was fun to do, but I actually kind of like it's very different experience. You got your high res camera in your pocket. You just pop it out, take some shots. Very informal. Then you throw it onto an iPad, or in this case my iPad mini, and I just sit back on the couch and I'm just tapping away, and it just doesn't feel like I'm really doing video work, but it comes out the same way because but the experience is a lot more pleasurable. It was quite a funny experience, that, really.
Well, it looks like you enjoyed yourself both at the show and cutting it. It's a great video, and wow, some of those cars do look good.
Well, that's the first topic of what we wanted to talk about too. Is that the thing that surprised me from that show is how stylish, I guess, the cars are. Because I guess the cliched EV is kind of a box on wheels, really, because they have to fit a big battery in there.
Simpson style.
If you think of something like, not to be unfair or unkind to a Prius or something like the early models, but although I saw a Prius the other day that was starting to look a little sharper than previous models, but it was interesting to see. In that video, I focused a bit on a blue Audi Q8 and that was my favorite color. That's why I sort of lingered on it a bit longer. But it was interesting to see that it kind of looked like what those Audis look like, the diesel and petrol engine ones, and the functionality on the inside, because I sat in a few of these cars, were quite fascinating. I mean, it's more like a computer more than anything else now, and it just seemed like exciting because there's obviously a push now to mandate EVs across the board. In the next 10 years, I think the EU is the most aggressive in that space, and obviously I think we've got a target here in Australia of 2035 or something, I think it is, but I don't know how we'll go with that, but it's an interesting new time as far as that's concerned.
Oh, it's very interesting. I mean, I'll be upfront. I'm not really a big fan of EVs. I don't really agree with the battery proposition with which is lithium. We don't know anything about recycling that or any of those other things, and to drive them, and I've had test drives in a number of them. They are very appliance. So for me, the experience of driving a car, whatever petrol or diesel engine car, it is very different to driving an electric car, full EV. And I wonder what the future will look like, especially in Australia. I think you can get away with an electric vehicle just around town. If you're traveling under 40 or 50 kilometers a day, but I think if you have bigger distances to travel, then you'd start to question it. And I really wonder actually how much enjoyment an EV gives you past the initial purchase. It's like a phone. For the first week, you love your new phone, and then after that, it's just a phone. For me, my interactions with EVs, I found them thrilling. Don't get me wrong. They're like you say, they're like, highly advanced motor vehicles or vehicles, but there's something about them, and I think maybe they're a little bit soulless for an old petrol head like me, and after a week or two, it'll be no different to a phone.
You don't get that satisfying grunt when you put the accelerator down, and you don't get the engine punch and the sound and everything, unless they backport that in somehow as a feature. Like as in they simulate it in some way. But you're right, like the battery technology is where I think it's interesting. Like I think they really have to crack that somehow. Obviously, there's the concept of going away from fossil fuels is not really I don't think anyone's arguing with that. It's just more the how does the vehicle get powered, essentially, which would suggest some sort of battery technology, but perhaps it needs to be an advanced battery technology that's not in use and not using the types of elements that are required at the moment.
Well, you're right, and I find it interesting. I mean, personally, I would favour a plug-in hybrid. So, one which has a battery range of 40 or 50 Ks. I don't want 500 Ks of electric range. I want 40 or 50 so I could drive around the city and then everywhere else. And Toyota's already done a lot of this. And I would think that if they really wanted to, you could easily get cars that would have the range of or have be able to achieve 1 or 2 liters per 100, using a hybrid system, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
And it would achieve like a significant reduction in petrol use as well.
Significant reduction in fossil fuel use and significant reduction in lithium required for the batteries, and I think that would actually probably be a win-win. But who knows? I mean, this is big business. You've got all of your major manufacturers rushing to EVs now, and it looks like they might be getting burnt. They're expensive to make. People like Elon change the price or make it up on however he's feeling on the day, however he wants to drive competition. And you've also got completely new brands on the market like BYD that I think from next year will be the largest supplier of electric cars in the world. So it's a real shake-up, and I don't think anyone knows where this is going to take us. I mean, GM's just cancelled its EV program, so that's a step backwards. And while, as I say, I'm not a big fan of EVs, I'd hardly want to see the option removed or the opportunity to purchase these cars go backward. I just personally don't think that really they're the answer to what we're trying to achieve.
And it's probably just worth noting the that Guardian article I sent through, also like which you're sort of alluding to there. The CFO of Mercedes-Benz was calling the EV market brutal, and that it's potentially not sustainable in the long term, based on how it's going exactly at the moment, and it's because it's under pressure from other players in the market, like Chinese manufacturers in particular, who haven't had a traditional foothold in the vehicle market, the traditional vehicle market, but because they're at the forefront of doing a lot of tech-related work, because these EVs are like tech products.
Well, that's right, and make no mistake, the startups who are big in this space, Tesla and BYD, are both getting huge subsidies, have built their businesses on huge subsidies through their respective governments. So, it's pretty easy to be a game changer when you've got a government backing you, and what I think we've seen is all the early adopters have gone out and got themselves an EV, which is great. And probably those earlier adopters are people that actually probably would prefer an EV to a petrol car, even if we weren't looking at environmental considerations. And they're all there. But now you have to convince the other 75% of the population that they want to move to an EV. And I think, whether it's, plant-based meat simulants or whether it's cars, it's easy to get that first 20% across the line. But how do you convince the other 80% that they want to swap? And I think you'll see maybe a little bit less enthusiasm for EVs in the short term before it picks up again once they have a rethink of what an EV really should be.
And the classic bell curve, bell curve or whatever it is, the one that goes like that in terms of the adoption. Absolutely. All right. Just quickly, just our second topic here. We talked about earthquakes in Australia before. Obviously, we had the ones in Melbourne. Darwin just got one. We had one in Melbourne the other week as well, although I slept through that one. Although it was only, I think it was 3.0, that one. The Darwin one, I think, was a bit larger at 5.6, but that was obviously off out at sea. But just another example that these things can happen, or whatnot. There was a bit of a concern of shaking around in there. No injuries or anything like that, but it's still a reminder that don't take anything for granted when it comes to the environment and the any sort of events that might occur. We've been fairly stable here, and I guess we kind of know things like cyclones and bushfires and whatnot. Earthquakes haven't really been on the radar much, but it's becoming a bit more of a talking point now for people.
Well, of course, post Arche, they've now got all the warning systems in for tsunamis, and so we do pay a lot more attention to those earthquakes, particularly along that Pacific Rim. And yeah, I guess it's a reminder, just because we don't see very many of them, especially in southern Australia. They're very real, and they can literally happen anywhere. While you can live in a very stable zone, that just means there's less likelihood of an earthquake. Not that there's no chance of an earthquake. And I guess sometimes we think that things should be always the way they have been, but of course the Earth, the planet, and the solar system around us has other ideas.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, and just finally, this caught my attention. Actually, it did catch my attention quite a while back, because it's actually an old story, but I'm circling on it now because Hasan himself has actually responded to it. So if you're unaware, Hasan Minhaj actually was accused in a New Yorker article of effectively fabricating life experiences for his comedy show. So basically, calling him out as a liar, basically, and like a fraud or whatnot. And he then subsequently, and I watched it last night. I think it only actually dropped last night. The video of his response, where he jokingly said he did a deep dive on his own story, and how the New Yorkers basically cherry picked certain quotes and whatnot out of there to shape a narrative about what he's been up to. And the thing that kind of struck me about it is that I have no doubt that that's what the New Yorker did, but I also just have a question mark over him in terms of his approach, because I think there's a perception with comedians that they're drawing from life experience, and that observation is funny. That's why they're making jokes about this, that, or the other thing. And what complicates it even further is that he does political comedy as well. And in political comedy, he even states it in his rebuttal video: you have to be dead on accurate with your facts. But if you're mixing that with storytelling comedy, like he mentions, people are going to have the perception that what you're saying in your storytelling comedy, especially if you do not advertise that you're doing this, that what you're saying is actually what happened. So I think it's a little, call it naivete maybe, but I don't think I understand his argument, and it fully makes sense. I just think that putting that out there beforehand might have saved him the trouble of the New Yorker article, because you put yourself in that position. There's going to be some scummy media outlet that's going to take advantage of it and plaster your good name, for whatever reason they want to, because they know it'll sell copy. So that's I feel like it's all a mess, the whole thing.
Oh, I'd certainly agree with you that it's a mess. I mean, I think you've really highlighted what the issues are here. If you take that step too far, it is it a show? Is it entertainment, or is it a statement? Is it, are you grandstanding on an issue, or are you sort of highlighting it in a kind of fun way? I mean, it becomes really, really difficult, I think, particularly in a personality-driven society now, where you have a brand and you're associated with that brand, and some people will never get to know the real you, so they just take everything you do as being on face value as being truthful and real. And then somehow they end up feeling betrayed when they find out that it wasn't. It was just entertainment. I really don't know what to do about this, because I think this pervades every aspect of social media today. So it's no different just to being an Instagram influencer who, if you ever see me in real life, looks terrible, but I look fantastic in Instagram. That's a lie, I guess. But it isn't, because, of course, everyone looks great on Instagram. And I think you can just take this and you can put it on every narrative now that you see for every popular person. There may be a lot of truth in what you tell if you're bringing serious issues up, if you want to bring political issues up. But once upon a time, it was pretty clear if you were satirizing politics. Now, if you've got a personal brand mixed up in your satire and you're trying to entertain but make a political statement at the moment, I don't know where you end up. So I just think this is just one case of many. I'm not even sure, because I'm so cynical, that this isn't a handy marketing sort of piece, so there you go.
Absolutely. I mean, it certainly didn't help him as far as his job prospects, because he lost a spot on the Daily Show, it sounds like, over it. And it kind of, again, just comes back down to the fact that he's known for going out there and making these statements and wanting to make a point. So I think you really need to be switched on to how you're coming across, because it's going to, you're going to be diagnosed so quickly after the fact online that if if he had, all this would not have happened at all if he had just come out at the beginning of this show that caused the problem. If he said at the front, I'm embellishing, I'm trying to make a point, and I'm telling a story. That's the only way that I could see that he could have survived something like this ahead of time. And I'll use an analogy here. Ricky Gervais, in his last stand-up comedy show, never did this before, but he specifically explained the concept of irony at the beginning of his show, but he made it funny, obviously. And that's the type of thing. If you're a really clever comedian, then that's probably what you need to do in the environment that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I think you've just summed everything up there. If you're going to be cancelled for embellishing life, well, it's kind of funny, really, isn't it?
But I'm just saying, read the room around you and the environment that you're in. It might not have happened 20 years ago, whatever, but it doesn't matter, because this is like you said, this is the environment we're in at the moment. It's a symptom of a wider cultural thing of how things are run at the moment.
And all people have to do is believe that you've affronted them, and you've affronted them. So, and I think that's classic in this situation. I mean, you get cancelled, but by the same token, it strengthens your brand potentially. So it just depends how you bounce back from these things. I wonder, although I guess we've seen plenty of people ruined as well by being cancelled. So I guess, we'll see how this one turns out, but this is not an isolated incident.
Absolutely. All right, Steve. Well, we'll wrap it up there. And despite my, video editing on the iPad with that little clip, I don't think we'll edit this. I haven't quite got to the point of editing on the iPad Mini for our show yet, but, it might be doable at some point.
Well, I'm sure that's not too far away if you look how far our technology's come over the last decade.
Absolutely. All right, so don't forget to check out our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices, and we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.